Hello everybody, back to Philippians chapter 1 and we're on verse 15. Please excuse my voice, it's a bit low today because a little bit under the weather. Okay, so picking up in verse 15. Some indeed are preaching Christ out of envy and strife, and some also from goodwill. The former preach Christ out of contention, not sincerely intending to add trouble to my circumstance. But the latter preach out of love, knowing that I am appointed for the defence of the gospel. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and in this I rejoice. And so we see here that noise in the background is a washing machine, by the way, just in case you wondered. Here we see that sometimes the gospel isn't always preached correctly in the right manner. Okay, some will preach it in love, some will preach it, maybe a bit harshly, and some people may be sort of speaking about God or speaking about Christ or the things of God in a bad way. Okay, in a negative way. It says some preach Christ out of envy and strife, some also from goodwill. And so whether a person, even if a person's sort of speaking against God and against Jesus, the gospel's still being heard, because that person is mentioned about Jesus and they may be saying, oh, well, Jesus died on the cross. Oh, right, okay. Oh, what, and he rose from the dead. Oh, yeah. And what he's coming back again, and he had done all these miracles and he healed the sick. And the person that might say at the end of it, oh, well, that's not true, But without realising that they've just preached the gospel. They've just spoken the resurrection, the crucifixion, the second coming of Christ, and the miracles that he's done. And so without realising it, they've been preaching. However, out of contention. So, verse 19. For I know that through your prayer and support of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will result in my deliverance. See, Paul knew that he was going to be set free at some point from this prison, but that was down to God's timing. The people still prayed and supported him. The difference between, like when I said earlier, it may be God's will for a person to be in prison, okay, for a righteous cause, which was the same matter as Paul here. Now, they did pray for him to be free. That's not a problem, but also we need to not try and put a time on it, We shouldn't say, oh, well, he's got to be released by a certain time. We should pray, Lord, in the long term, he can only be in prison for so long, because if it's against the law to preach the gospel and you get 2 years in prison, then when that 2 years is up, obviously it's lawful for them to be free. So the church was still praying for Paul's deliverance, but that's down to God's timing. Accordingly, it is my earnest expectation and my hope that I shall be ashamed of in nothing, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also, Christ will be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or death. And so Paul is saying here, whether he lives or dies, he prays that God will be magnified, that God's word will go forth, that people will hear, and he was prepared to die for it. Okay? And that's why he said, whether it be life or death, that Christ will be magnified in my body and not be put to shame. Verse 21, for to me, to continue living is Christ, and to die is gain. Or for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And so therefore he's saying, if I live on this earth and live out my life, then that is for Jesus. Okay? But then he goes on to say, but death is to gain. If I die, that's not the end of everything. That's not the end of me. I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to be with God. I'm going to be with Christ and with, loved ones that have come to the faith. and he's going to be in the best place, as we often say. So death is gain, and this is one thing that we need to realise as Christians, is that death, even though it speaks of death as an enemy in the Bible, death is just a doorway into the life to come. And the life to come is a very good life, a life beyond understanding, beyond words, beyond our imagination. And so therefore we should not fear it. The fear of death is more of a fear of the unknown, because you've never been there. Okay, it's a bit like you've been told, oh, we will go to a certain place, and you've never been there, so you're a bit anxious and a bit unsure, like, oh, I haven't been there before, or like meeting new people that you've never met before, and so it's like, oh, I'm a bit anxious about meeting new people, going to a new place, and so therefore that's what death is like. It's just the fear of the unknown. Because we're not scared of going to heaven. I mean, of course we're not. So it's just the fear of the unknown. Verse 22, but if I am to live on in the flesh, this will mean fruitful labour to me. Yet I do not know what I shall choose. Or King James says, but if I am to live on in the flesh, this is more beneficial for you. Okay? If Paul carries his life on in the flesh, then he will be there to teach and to preach the gospel and to encourage the saints in Philippi and to be able to help them grow in their faith. However, if he dies, that's a benefit to him, but his death will not benefit anybody else other than himself. But then he goes on to say, yet I do not know what I shall choose. I'm in a difficult position between the two, having a desire to depart and to be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to remain in the flesh is more needful for your sake. So he's saying, part of me wants to go, part of me is not afraid of death, and I'll go to heaven. That's my spiritual part, and wants to be with Christ. But however, I do need to stay here on earth and do that which God has called me to do. Okay, I'm going to stop there and come back for part 3. So, see you in the next video. God bless you.